Wisdom necklaces.
Oh boy. Okay. Definitely up on YouTube. Facebook looks good. Instagram looks good. All right.
Are we up on Grindr yet?
I'll leave you that one.
All right. Welcome everyone to the 034 Motorsport live chats zero bullshit Q&A session, episode
240.
240. It's 240 episodes. All right. We're here to answer all your questions about all things 034 and certainly anything Volkswagen, Audi, or BMW related, and all general car talk, knowledge, anything you'd like to submit for our response, we'd be happy to look at. I also like questions about the company, about our history, about our philosophy. Some of you guys ask some very thought-provoking questions, and that's always appreciated. We do take a no BS approach to responding, which means we're very direct about what we have to say. We like to beat around the bush, and our goal is always to put out accurate, truthful information. There's a lot of BS out there, and we don't want to be part of that. I'm Javad Shadzi, and this is Nate Stewart. So submit your question to the comment field of your current social media interface, and our team of live chat experts will transcribe your question into this satellite space device, and then we'll answer your questions. We already got questions coming in. One last note: if you ask a question about an update or when something's going to be done already, we may not answer it due to prioritizing topical questions that we can proactively respond to. So, please don't get offended if we don't respond to your question about when something is going to be done already. It just means that we didn't have time for that. Welcome to ask another question, and we will definitely put high priority. I think the last few months we've pretty much gotten to every topical question that's come in. All right, on that, let's get started. It seems like you guys always advertise spring rates for your lowering springs. What do you think keeps some companies from not disclosing spring rates? Seems important when making a purchasing decision. That's a good question. At 034, I think you guys will agree. I hope you find and agree that we disclose a lot of detailed data and information about our products. We like to think that we do that better than anyone. We're more open and forthcoming with product information. Certainly, spring rates, sway bar, spring rates, horsepower and torque figures, airflow improvements, calculations, all precisely measured and accurately advertised. I think some companies feel like that's an important piece of proprietary information. They would want to put that out there so that another company could copy it. I think some companies may not know. There's lots of companies
I think a lot of it might be rebranded springs they don't even know or aren't sure of the spring rate.
There's lots of factories that make catalogs of lowering springs, and you can get them painted whatever color you want with whatever logo you want. I know I won't put out any names, but some major tuning companies that you've heard of would buy Eibach or H&R springs and spray paint them different colors and stencil on their own logo or put a sticker on it. In that case, if H&R didn't disclose the spring rate, they're not going to know either. They would have to test it. For us, it's valuable information, like you say. It helps you make a purchase decision. And honestly, it's not hard to find. So if anybody wanted to knock off our springs and they were serious about it, they would just get a set of our springs from us or any of our dealers and send it to a spring manufacturer to copy. And I know that's happened as well. So we prefer to, kind of put that at risk, put those possibilities at risk to provide a better product and service for you guys. Just us here talking about this stuff, we know a number of our competitors watch our live chat, and we know that they've taken actions based on things we say on the live chat. We talk about stuff openly, what we're working on ahead of time. So it does give our competitors an insight to what we're doing. And instead of protecting it and launching it at the last minute so that our competitors are shocked and surprised by what we're about to do next, we're telling you guys stuff sometimes years in advance. Does it put us at a slight disadvantage to our competitors? Yes, but we believe that the opportunity is more than made up for by being open and more helpful and forthcoming with information. Is it possible for the B9 SQ5 Stage 1 to do a donut? Always wonder what would happen if I turned the wheel while launching.
It is possible, yes. There are videos out there. Actually, one of our customers did a pretty good, got a pretty good capture of one on video. I don't know, about what, 6 to 8 months ago, I think, probably. You remember that? He posted on Facebook a while ago.
In the snow.
So no, there was one. No, there was one on Tarmac as well.
What?
Yeah.
In a B9 SQ5?
Pretty sure, but you got to be careful because it is still a B9 SQ5.
I think B9 S4.
S4 is for sure, yeah. But SQ5s, you get a little taller center of mass there, so
It's less of a donut though, more like a maple log. It's the big donut.
Like a bear claw.
You don't know what a maple log
I'm
is?
following you, but it just also means something.
Maybe in your parts.
Yeah, definitely give it a try in the rain or snow. But on in the dry, the Quattro likes to hook up. So Quattro cars are not the best at doing donuts. If you want to do donuts, get a rear-wheel drive. Otherwise, you can just launch aggressively towards the horizon. That's what SQ5s do very well, with lots of groceries in the trunk. When is it necessary to perform clutch adaptation? Any harm in running it?
Only if you need to. Generally, the adaptation stuff, all of the some of the additional toolbox features. If you don't know what they are, if you don't think you don't need to go in and just push every button that's in front of you. I say that not because you're maybe doing that, but we've been getting more and more questions the more tools we add. People wondering why this random adaptation feature isn't working or isn't running on their car in any particular situation. And those are tools. Again, they're there in a lot of diagnostic tool sets like VAGCOM, OBD11. They're in all those tool sets as well, and they've got to be treated the same way. Where you have to know why you're going to use it and when you can use it and what it does. If you don't know those things, then I wouldn't even bother looking at it. Clutch adaptation stuff is another one. You generally will basically never need to run that in most situations. Some cases, if it's like a new clutch pack or there's some other, troubleshooting thing that you're looking to do, or for some reason you think it might be out of whack or there was some mechanical change, you can certainly run it. But it's not something you go in like as a weekly affair. You'll need to go in and adapt your clutches. It's just we're giving you guys some more tools and more.
Any harm in just running it because you feel like it?
There can be with some stuff if you don't know what you're doing. If it's not set up right and it doesn't finish or it gets like halfway through a process, it can leave you in a weird state.
But only use it when it's needed.
Yeah. There's no reason to launch all these off without knowing why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't think I've seen one that's caused any kind of true issues. But it's just something that it could potentially happen. It's not as good as it was before.
You probably don't want to do it once a day.
Yeah, there's definitely no need because
I don't see any reason why you couldn't just do it once a year.
Sure, yeah, you can if you really want, but it's those will get everything reset, and then there's a process that's depending on what adaptation values are reset, where it has to go through and relearn all of the adaptions. Basically, that will bring all of its closed loop control in line as close as possible. So generally, when you reset adaptions, things will actually could drive worse for a while, or just because all of your nuanced, customized adaptions for that platform, for that vehicle may have
has to readapt.
It has to be readapted.
So it's not a free lunch.
Yeah.
It's not like defragging your hard drive.
Yeah, no. Not at all.
I already sent a support email, but any quick ideas why I would be getting a P0087 and P1250 after installing MQB vacuum and high pressure fuel pump on a B9 A4 with a 91 plus file flashed? Also, STFT is up to 30%.
Yeah, something's not right. Either you've got a leak. I gotta pull up my questions here. They say they've got the pump installed.
Yeah, pump and vacuum pump installed.
Good thing he's emailed support.
Yeah, we'll have to look at it in the support tickets
Yeah.
and see and check log.
Yeah, we're not well prepared to off the cuff
Yeah.
support you. That's why we have a team of people trained to do this. So, and our response times are excellent. Do we? I heard last week we were
Same day to 1 day max generally.
Yeah.
And tuning now. General log submission. Like you
different.
haven't emailed us
Yeah.
saying you have a problem. It's just
Right.
you sent in a log.
That's longer.
Like base notes. That's 2 days.
But we're responding in less than 1 day to, on average, to. So some people are getting much faster responses than that. Good question. How much goes into making a new tune or new stage for an existing tune? I feel like most people don't know how much back-end work and testing is required. Just got an A6 and noticed no stage 2 plus yet. Yeah, this is a good question because we're actually working on an advertising piece promoting our tuning, and one of the things we've been doing is collecting some of this data about how much time and energy and some of the stats and specs that go into our calibrations, and it is actually shocking and impressive how much time and energy goes into these tunes and calibrations. And you are right, most people don't know. The flip side of that is the companies that may spend a day on the dyno and release a tune also don't tell you that, and so the assumption is that they spent a lot more time on it than they did. So I think
that's an equivalent.
that is
product
equivalent, right?
that just because they're selling it, they must have done.
So we have the benefit of putting in tremendous time and energy to make these products the best. But where we get kind of screwed is, sometimes the customers assume that the other company has done the same thing, and that's not the case. So just some quick numbers. Like I said, we've been collecting these. Just for our B9 3.0 T calibration, over 30,000 development hours of tuning and calibration and engineering that file. 500,000 development miles across 10 company employee test vehicles. That's just here. Now, if you talk about the number of miles that have been put on by customers, which we wouldn't consider testing, but it's a data point on how many miles our customers have successfully and safely driven on these files. It's obviously well into the millions. 1,000 to 2,000 internal file revisions for a stage 1 tune alone. This was kind of an estimate by two of our calibrators. And so that's the file revisions alone. Imagine if you were, writing a book and you were 2,000 revisions into the book. 4+ years of continued testing over 1 year, just stage 1 alone. So before we released stage 1, we were in development testing for 1 year on that. 40+ road course track days with high thermal and high load testing. Just think about that. 40+ track days. Hundreds and hundreds of dyno hours. Hard to even say. Like days and days on the dyno. Yeah. And so our first B9 tune was released pretty much 4 years ago.
Almost to the day, yeah.
Middle of June, 4 years ago. It's safe to say it's the most popular, most widely purchased, most widely used B9 tune in the industry, and these days the most attacked by our competitors who would like a piece of that business. But we put a lot of pride in these products. When you put that much time and energy into something and it works and it's successful, it is a source of pride. And so the tuners, the calibrators, the engineers that we have that work on these products do get paid. And of course, they're making a living and supporting their families. But the sense of pride and the sense of accomplishments around and behind the results from these products is tremendous. And so that's really fundamentally what drives us all here at 034 is we all want to do a great job, and we want to be successful. And by successful, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about we want to create great products that customers love, customers can use, that customers feel good about buying and using. And that's success to us. And if we do that, then we get paid too. And that's part of the process. So great question. Not every tuner revision may need that much work, but you have an A6. How long have we been working on the 2 Plus for?
Quite some time, yeah. Because we could have shortcutted that one in particular and gotten it out a lot sooner.
Yeah.
But we wanted to take the time and get all of the airflow models correct and recalculated because you're basically at the end of what all the stock maps are able to do, or past the end of those. Mm-hmm. So you've got to either fudge it and kick out a file quickly, or step back and reformulate basically how all the math works internally, so that you're within all of your maps, you're properly calculating torque for the airflow, and all that lines up and operates correctly. So we could have released a 2 Plus long ago, and in a manner that was quick and dirty, but we knuckled down and want to get it done right the first time.
Yeah, so I think we've been working a good 6 months.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
on the
at
2
least,
Plus
just the 2 Plus
calibration,
yep.
Including developing a whole new low pressure fuel pump product as part of it.
Yep.
And like Nate said, we were at a point where we could have just kind of fudged it. I don't know if you want to know more about fudging and what that means, check out our YouTube. We have a fact check video that we released last year that goes into great detail about what it looks like to do that right and what it looks like to fudge it. And we don't fudge here at 034. So we actually went and re-engineered all the mapping to run correctly at the higher boost levels, at the higher load levels, including adding more low pressure fuel flow to the fuel system capacity. So, and sometimes developing these files means creating hardware as well, because you can develop hardware and you can develop software, but if they don't work together, it doesn't matter. So when you're pushing the tune and calibration to the 2 Plus level, you're going to need good free flowing airflow in and out of the motor. You're going to need fuel system capacity. And so we've, up to this point, developed high pressure fuel pump piston upgrades, and now a low pressure as well. Of course, we have the pulleys, the intakes, the belts, everything else you need. The clutch delete for the supercharger, all that stuff we've already done. But it all comes together in these calibrations, and it's not quick and it's not easy to do. So great question. Thanks for asking that.
It was not planned.
What's that?
That was not a plant.
No, I saw that.
Great impression. Yeah. What do you think of longer service intervals for the newer DSG transmissions like the DQ250 will result in a shorter service life? We try to address these questions which keep coming up.
I feel like last week was service interval week. We did this like 3 or 4 times, but
I mean it would be logical to say that if you didn't change the fluid in a timely manner, that it would have a detriment to the life of the transmission. In reality, it's really hard to say. If you change your fluid at 50,000, is your transmission going to last X number of miles longer? There's no way to say that. If you're concerned about the longevity and life of your transmission, we would recommend shorter, service intervals and servicing of the transmission, like fluid and filter changes. Maybe as much as every 30 to 40,000 miles. I think the factory intervals are more like 100,000.
Somebody just noted on here that the 381 G2 is now listed at 40K, which is what I would consider normal.
No, sorry, 80K.
Okay, there you go.
80K. That makes more sense.
So no, that's definitely about double what we would say for a performance-oriented, spirited driving situation. I think 40K is about what
we usually say 40 to 50 for the various DSGs. But if you wait till 150,000 miles, is it going to wreck your transmission? Maybe not. It's hard to say. There's no direct link.
Yeah, it's so dependent on how that vehicle is being driven, the how the whatever calibration you've got on it is behaving with the given mods.
It's a lot like saying if you eat beef, are you going to live longer or shorter? And then someone says, my grandpa ate beef every day and he lived to 105. And another person says, my dad had a heart attack at 50. So you just don't know. But in general, yes, it's a good idea to service sooner if you're concerned about it. If you don't care about the longevity of your transmission, then you don't really have to worry about it too much.
There's a follow-up or another question that came in right below that.
They interestingly have every 20,000 miles check your sunroof drains for Mk8 GTI.
Nice.
That's in the actual Volkswagen service manual.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea for all the cars.
Somebody else is asking if what the recommended services for a stage 2 B9 TCU is. Similar, 40 to 50K generally for fluid services on the transmission, and you'll be in good shape.
Yeah. Do you want to go into rolling anti-lag?
We can talk about this, just like what.
Someone's asking, can you go deeper into rolling anti-lag for B9 3.0T? What you look for, what some dangers could be, etc.
I mean, as with any of these, we try and the way we implement these functions is as much of an OEM manner as possible, where we will wrap in a number of safety checks around everything. In this case, you're altering, fueling, timing, injector cutoff stuff. So you want to monitor stuff like EGTs. You want to monitor loads, boost, temperatures. Make sure you're not already overheating the engine and then trying to go do some more anti-lag launching things. And there's situations like that. So it's just kind of encompassing it from a very I don't want to say it's making it as bulletproof as we can by accounting for all of the various factors that might hurt the motor. So usually it's going to be a temperature related thing in these to make sure EGTs are in check and your fuel supply is correct and all that. So that would be the majority of it.
Yeah.
There's other stuff because if it's a rolling anti-lag, you're obviously in motion for that. So you just got to make sure all of your conditions and your states are correct to get into to turn it on. So you're not enabling anti-lag or something when you don't want it.
My RS6 injector failed on my B9 S4, so even OEM parts can fail. How can you ensure that 034 injectors will last? This is a good question. And obviously, we know OEM parts fail because O'Reilly's and Pep Boys and Audi dealers with parts departments are on just about every street corner. Every part will fail, and every part is susceptible to fail. There's no such thing as the perfect part. However, I would say that when we release our big injectors, big FSI injectors, when you get a Bosch or Siemens injector, it comes in a box, and you can assume that it's been manufactured to the highest standards and tested at some point before it was deemed a sellable product. But we just don't know. There's no flow test in the box. We don't know what that factory did. It could be that you just sampled, every 100th injector and made assumptions, or maybe the way those injectors are put together is to save cost and to speed up production. But there's something about it that fails occasionally. So factory injectors, we know, are not super reliable. Our high flow injectors are essentially hand built and blueprinted individually, one at a time, and so the injectors are taken apart and revalved and put back together and tested. So we have a lot of information here internally on what was done to each injector and what test was performed and to what standard that injector performed to before it was deemed sellable. And so, I think it'll be safe to say that our injectors will be more reliable than the average factory injector. There's nothing about them that will be less reliable, and the way they're built and manufactured is a much slower, more expensive process than what the factory would use. And so all we can do is to ensure that the injectors don't fail is to ensure that quality parts and manufacturing processes are used and that the injectors are tested to a degree after production as a quality control check, but also long-term tested and as part of our engineering process. So I think the market will find that the injectors will be very good and very reliable, and will to the best of our abilities, validate that before we ship any injectors to you.
Yeah, and anybody out there saying that there's an injector that can be made that will never fail is, that's not really a physical reality that exists.
No, so it's good to do logs occasionally and to be very sensitive to how your engine's running. If you feel any misses or stumbles, to not continue to put load on that engine. But especially when you're pushing things to this degree, we're not talking about a 200 horsepower 6-cylinder engine. We're basically 5 times higher than that.
Yep.
Tech support.
Yeah, anyone who has a tech support question, definitely email techsupport@034motorsport.com. Like we said earlier, we're not really equipped here on the live chat to dig deep into tech support.
Yeah, this number one I can hit though.
Yeah, why don't you try that?
Someone's saying they're getting a bunch of soft codes after flashing a TCU. They list a handful of codes afterwards. We don't know what TCU this was on. What I can say is on some of the, I thought I remembered it, but it's either, I think it's the DQ250 MQB cars, if I remember correctly. Not after you flash, but anytime you check those codes or check that transmission for codes with the engine running, you'll get like a page and a half of faults that aren't real. It's just a function of whatever they're doing on the fault detection stuff that has all of these, like, they're not real codes. They're false positives, or they're non-persistent codes. But you'll get a myriad of codes, and it'll happen stock or otherwise. We've had people question it after they flashed, and we say, well, did you check it in the same conditions before you flashed? Like, well, no. They go back to stock, and they're the same set of codes only while the vehicle's running. You shut it off or you key cycle and clear codes, it's all gone. But it's just a function of some of these transmissions can falsely report a pile of codes for no obvious reason.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any questions, fire it off to tech support regardless. I don't know if that's what this case is or not, but we'll take a look at it.
Someone's saying, I want a blow-off valve for an Audi A5 B9.5.
It was for DQ250. He followed back up.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. We don't recommend that on Audis. There's actually really never been an Audi that should have a blow-off valve. Also, why you don't really see it from the factory.
Except B5.
Definitely not B5.
That would be the worst. Those have
they all have recirculation valves. No, they're all. There's the same thing as on all the modern cars. It's your recirc valve in a electrical state. So it's the exact same functionality. You still want to recirculate and relieve the pressure from the turbo outlet. And the best place to put it is in the turbo inlet. So it's.
Yeah, I think anyone who thinks a recirculating valve is a blow-off valve is very misinformed. Blow-off means the air blows off to the out of the intake, and there really isn't an Audi that was ever suited for that. And there isn't really a factory car either. That's why you don't see a lot of factory cars come with them. However, I did see this really great product. It's basically a little speaker that goes under your hood and a button on a remote. And you can get blow-off sounds whenever you want. Even when you're wide open throttle, you can be like, like while you're accelerating, blowing off the whole time. So I would just do something like that. You could tape it to your steering wheel. Probably the way to go.
Generally, we see more trouble, or we only see trouble with blow-off valves. We have not seen any kind of benefit to them other than
there is a sound. No, you do want a pressure relieving device that can recirculate unused boost pressure or static boost pressure back to the turbo inlet. The reason you don't there's an obvious one from an emissions standpoint. It releases potentially unburnt fuel into the atmosphere instead of running it through the combustion process. So that's the main reason why you don't see it.
That would be from your PCV or your breather system.
The engines for a long time have been closed systems. So once air goes into the engine, the only way it can escape is out the tailpipe. By having any extra hydrocarbons in it burnt off through the combustion and catalytic converter process. The other reason is that once air enters your air intake, the ECU counts it as air that's going to go in the engine. And if at some point that air goes out into the atmosphere, then the ECU can no longer match that volume of air with the appropriate amount of fuel. So it can mess with your ECU fuel trim calculations as well. So
yeah, if you're on a MAF base,
especially a big problem if you're on a MAF where that air was actually measured coming in and then it goes out. Big problem. The MAF-less cars, the ECU is still calculating the amount of airflow that's coming in the engine. So yeah, no, it's not a good idea. But if you want the sound, there are other ways to get it. You could also just have a blowhorn, one of those amplified ones, and just go out the window and go. You can make whatever sounds you want.
Lots of like a good intake will get you most all of that because the recirc valve is there on these cars anyway, and it's dumping back into the turbo inlet, and you hear it quite clearly with open intakes.
Yeah, open intake will definitely, like any of our
free flowing,
any of our intakes will give you more of that sound. But I mean, some of the guys are looking for the.
They want the HKS sound. The valve called.
Yeah, I know what I used to call it.
The Screaming Eagle.
That's been canceled. I can't say that. Screaming Eagle. Eagles don't scream; they chirp. It's really unfortunate. Does the supercharger clutch delete provide benefit before reaching stage 2 power? Not as much,
but I mean, it is. Well, I know you really appreciated the drivability change.
Yeah.
Not necessarily from a performance standpoint, but it isn't the best system for a smooth engagement, re-engagement, or release.
My Q7 felt like it had a sloppy transmission shifting for a long time, and then when we put in the clutch delete, I realized that was just the supercharger not engaging and delaying the response of the turbo.
Yeah, or when it does engage you, I mean, it's a big physical, it's a lot of inertia that you're spinning up from a stop each time.
No, it was actually huge from a drivability.
Yeah, you'll feel it when given some situations. They try and mitigate it as much as they can by kind of ramping that engagement up by slipping it just a little bit, but it's a lot of load coming in
But the benefit from it slipping is not necessarily needed at that point. But above, definitely above that, yes, you need it.
Mm-hmm.
It will slip at some point.
Yeah, and some of them do just wear out.
Some of them do wear.
They're literally unable to hold stock.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for sure do it. We don't require it, but it's recommended. It's a real nice upgrade for not a lot of money. It's pretty easy to install.
Yep.
Shout out to Justin for walking me through the wrecked car tune discount process. Should be taking delivery of my second 2015 A7 soon. Love the tune effect on the 3.0T supercharged plus ZF8.
Awesome.
Great to hear, and Justin's right here with us in the room, so nice job, Justin. High five.
He's been high five too.
Very
high five confirmed.
Woof.
Now he just needs to be woofed. We are missing getting woofed lately. We were just
talking. You were talking about that before.
Hope everything's okay out there, buddy. B9 SQ5 unplugging the muffler valve causes a soft code. Does this reduce horsepower?
No. You'll get a code to let you know that, in fact, it is unplugged if you meant to have it plugged in, but there will not be any reduction in power. Stock there is. Well, actually, stock, it depends on some of the models and gears and setups and the stock software, but generally you can assume that there will be a power reduction.
No, there's no power reduction because the EC knows it's just the tip.
Yep.
Should I upgrade the crank or supercharger pulley first on B8.5 S5? Yeah, the team makes a good point that the crank pulleys are failure prone, so our solid crank pulley will never fail. It's such a solid chunk of aluminum, machined from the finest forged billet. But so if you were going to make an argument for something, it would be do that, and then you kind of address your reliability failure issue as well.
Yep. And if you know you're going to do both too, just doing the lower pulley also gets you it's essentially better or more belt wrap space. So if you're only going to be running the ratio, or you can get to the ratio you want with just the lower, it's generally preferred because it's going to give you a little bigger surface area on both pulleys to get to that pulley ratio. So belt slip is less of an issue.
21 S4 on your dynamic plus springs. Notice your ZTF wheels are 19 by 9.3 ET35 on 265 35s. Would other setups have the same flush look, smaller wheel with 275 35 18? I don't know. Yeah, we don't really know about other wheels. We've spent a lot of time perfecting the fit of our wheels and making them fit nicely with no real need for spacers and to have that flush look when you install.
Yeah, they don't list any of the offsets here, so that's a big thing that obviously will affect where that's going to live.
Offset's going to have a big impact on where the wheel sits. Obviously, that's literally the thing that affects it.
That is the math.
And then also the width of the wheel is going to affect how wide the tire sits on the rim and stuff. So, it's hard to say. Other than if you want a great fit, our wheels are ready to go.
Yep.
I don't know about number one. My B9 S4 is yet again in the shop, this time with some sort of electrical issue. If you had a $20,000 budget for a used daily, what would you purchase? I know the answer right off the top of my head.
$20,000 budget, go.
I would get like a 2018 Q7, which you can pick up for like 15, and then put like $5,000 into it of our stuff. It's a great daily driver and gives you room for 7 people. Great for vacations. You can tow with it. It's gonna have like 450 horsepower. You can put 305, 315 tires on it. Apple CarPlay built in, so that would be a good option.
Yep.
If you want something a little bigger.
Yeah, I was thinking more like Nick's typing some stuff in here. Like C8A6 is also a really good option. They're surprisingly capability-wise very similar.
I really like the A7s. I think they're really cool, especially with like big wheels on them and stuff.
They need big wheels. Those things are
but they look really good. You put some 20s on it with some big wide tires.
Yep,
that's a cool car. Definitely the A6.
Yeah,
the A6s.
He's in a tough spot though. He's still got to get his car fixed. So interesting to see what.
He's already got an S4.
Yeah, he's already got an S4.
That's why I went with Q7.
Yeah, we've had some weird electrical issues on a B9 S4 before. It turned out to be, what did it end up being? I think it was the steering rack.
The steering rack causes issues.
It was the steering rack, but it threw us for a ringer for a while.
Like for months, we were trying to
because it was not very obvious that was the fault, or the center of the fault.
The latest one was the steering rack.
I believe it was the rack. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, no. Well, it was partially that, but remember there was some recoding thing that they went in and performed a few different times. They changed the rack.
That was for the rack. They couldn't get it recoded or something after.
But then they finally.
We talked to an Audi Tech, and they're like, "Yeah, do it like 5 times in a row." And
you just have to keep doing it.
But yeah, there's
also if you want to follow up with like, do you want something small and sporty or something bigger? Obviously, I already addressed the bigger thing, but I mean, you could also get into probably like an HAT TRS. Could you?
No.
They're still way up.
No shot. 40,
Wow.
36 to 40.
They really held their value. Yeah. So what about a Mark 5 R32 or Mark 6 Golf R?
Golf R.
Yeah. The R32s again are up there. I mean, there's a lot of
those are
Mark 5 R32s. There. Mark 4.
I'm sorry, Mark 4 is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
No, Mark 5 R32 is a thing.
But whatever you get has to be relatively stock, right? Because you don't want to like start modifying that too.
I mean, there's all the B8.5 stuff. If you want to step back, I mean, 20K is going to be rough to get into another B9. But
you might as well get into something like I said, get in a bigger car, SUV or something. But anyways, it's
not SQ5 technically. 18.
They are cheaper, yeah. B9
That's great.
SQ5, you may be in the same boat you're in now if you want to change platforms.
Yeah, we love protect.
It's so easy.
Well, they asked. Mk8 GTI 6-speed. I despise pumps and bangs.
Go.
Do you have an ECU file that reduces pumps and bangs from stock? Also, do I need a TCU upgrade for the 6-speed? Thanks and love you guys. Me too.
Yes, we have files that are specifically no crackle files that will turn off entirely, even less than stock.
And
So
if you don't see it there, shoot us.
Yep.
Tuning at 034.
We'll get it set up for you. As far as do you need a TCU, I don't know how competent you are of a manual transmission driver. The TCU is your left leg generally. So
your brain is the controlling.
That's all on you.
Yeah. No, there's like Nate said, nothing's controlling the transmission of the menu. So you're good. How do you think the tuning will be affected or modified when the Marshall vastaz installs his 3.2 liter stroker on the procharger setup? I mean, I don't think it'll be too far off.
No, it's going to be. I mean,
but
it's going to be moving a little more air per given manifold pressure, so we're going to have to adjust the VE tables for it. But no, I'm not expecting some like massive amount of rework.
So I'm sure it'll benefit from some optimization.
And that's the thing is where we've got all this working within a proper VE model. We're not fudging numbers. We're everything's calculated, so we can go in and fix or calibrate that VE model, and that just works down the line. Your fueling gets corrected. Your ignition advance angles, come into line where they should be because it knows how much air is getting in, what that air is turning into, for basically cylinder pressures and power levels. So it all lines up properly. All your torque controls work. It drives the same for given pedal positions. It all magically works when the math is all together.
What's the ETA for drain line for the catch can kits? They are in production. Apologize for the length of time it's taken to get them. I guess we're out of ways now. It's not for lack of trying, but we've seen major supply chain disruptions with tariffs and everything. So we're doing our best to get those through, but they are coming. The design and engineering is done, and they've been in production. So as soon as those are available, they will be shipped out to you. No questions asked. Thank you for your patience. I trust everything's been working fine, though. Otherwise, you can check. You can check if and how much oil is in the catch can. B9 S5 running your Stage 3 Plus tune with TTA10, and I just want to say, hella appreciate you guys. My car is killing it out here in Arizona. How much will 034 inserts improve the car's performance? Thanks in advance. Well, wonderful to hear. Thank you for letting us know and the kind words. That's what we work very hard for.
Yep.
I would definitely strongly recommend doing the inserts ASAP. They will definitely tighten up the car. The way the power comes on and hits the drivetrain will be tightened up, and you'll feel more direct connection to the car when you apply power. Shifts are going to feel smoother and crisper. For the cost, it's a minimal investment for the benefit. So if you have any question, just go on the website and click on the reviews. I mean, there's just dozens.
Yeah, as far as like a performance metric, you asked about how the performance will be improved. That's not necessarily what the inserts or any mounts are going to be doing. They're going to be it's more a driveline containment thing. So just physically, ensuring you've got a good control of the driveline movement. But it's much more so a feel and a driver interface more than anything.
That's just as important sometimes.
So it's not like it's going to, you're not going to trap like 3 miles an hour faster or something in the quarter mile with a drivetrain insert set.
Yeah.
No.
How do I convince my wife that the black wheels will look better than the silver on my 16 SQ5? I think it's going to be some type of argument, whatever you come up with about safety. She wants you to come home at night. She wants the kids to be safe. It's all about safety, I think. So maybe you can sit and think on that. Also, just try being really nice to her, and she'll probably agree with what you say. Would the stage 3 B9 RS5 transmission file work with an upgraded transmission?
That's an impossible question to answer without knowing
What upgraded transmission?
what exactly was done with it. And I would say probably, I mean,
like,
if you went and
they
changed
went
clutch packs, and you went and
yeah.
changed torque converters, you went and changed a bunch of mechanical stuff within the transmission, it's probably not going to be as happy. But again, I can't answer that. It could be that, different plates were used with different number of plates were used with similar friction coefficients or something. We don't know. There's nothing we can.
The question I have is why? Why upgrade?
Yeah, well,
we found
which problem were you solving?
No need. Stock clutch packs, stock transmissions have been performing really well. So first, I'd be interested to know what's upgraded about it.
Yeah.
But it's to Nate's point. It's an unknown. We haven't tested that. We haven't found the need for it. The way we tune and calibrate the TCU, we're able to increase clamping force, to precise amounts that more than holds the power. There's this kind of misconception from the manual clutch days. With a manual clutch, let's say you have a pressure plate and you have a clutch disc, and you have an organic, almost all clutches come with an organic disc material. Talking about manual transmission clutches. Well, the coefficient of friction of an organic compound is relatively low. It's enough to hold stock power. It may be enough to hold, stage 1 power. But at some point, that clutch starts slipping because the engine's producing too much torque. And so there was a time when you needed an upgrade, but changing the clamping force of the pressure plate, while possible, would require taking out the pressure plate, finding a stiffer spring diaphragm, testing that and engineering that so that it would work properly and provide more clamping force. But if you didn't have access to that, you could make a clutch disc, and you could take a clutch disc to a lot of shops and they would reline it with a different material that had a higher coefficient of friction, which means for the same clamping force, it was stickier and grippier against the pressure plate and flywheel. So you could increase the clutch torque holding of the clutch by using a higher coefficient of friction material, such as Kevlar or sintered iron, stuff like that. So that idea has kind of translated into the DSG realm. Well, in the DSG realm, the cool thing is you have an active transmission that you can change the clamping force electronically, like what Nate's doing right now, clicking those keys over there on that laptop.
I just cranked it.
He can double or triple the clamping force of the factory clutch system through the hydraulic pressure. Using the valves, higher pressure is sent to the clutch packs. And so you don't have to change the disc material. You can just clamp the thing way, way harder. Okay. Now let's say you're picking up a 5-pound weight, and your hand, in order to hold that weight, has to apply a certain amount of force. To pick up a 10-pound weight, your hand's going to have to provide even more force, more clamping force, right? So we know that by increasing clamping force, even when we pick things up, we can increase the friction, the holding power of your hand or a clutch. It's the same exact concept. So there's kind of clutch companies, I'd say about 10 years ago, came to this horrible realization that the manual transmission is going away, and what are they going to sell? I mean, imagine if you're doing X millions of dollars of manual transmission clutches a year, and now that's just going to go away. Well, it's time to get into the DSG. DSG transmissions have clutches. We can make clutches for those too. We'll apply the same ideas for manual transmission clutches. Of course, a clutch company can't increase the clamping force of your DSG transmission. But what they can do is provide a product that has a higher coefficient of friction than stock. Reality is, this just not needed. And I'm sure at some point, the factory DSG would benefit from higher friction.
Yeah,
discs.
You can absolutely get to a point where you're not able to give enough reasonable pressure to those
But we're not there. We haven't been there. And we don't know at what point that would be. I see some of the tuners doing like 2,000 horsepower R8s. They're going in there and rebuilding the whole transmission. And they're using very exotic disc materials, to make all that work.
Yep.
They're also reprogramming the GSG for higher climbing force too. So.
And then to follow up on that, I think a lot of those DSG clutch kits also came along to solve a problem without the software, like John was saying. The problem is they will work in one situation. Maybe you fixed your clutch slip at full load or at launch or whatever. That all that means is the rest of your driving now is going to be terrible, because all of those the transmission's doing a lot of work based on its known clutch friction coefficients. There's maps and tables in there that describe all of that. If you change those, the transmission is going to be now engaging gears and slipping in and out of those clutch discs like it thinks it has the stock coefficient of friction, and now you've got this raunchy, grippy clutch disc in there. It's going to drive terribly in all of your light load and anything but basically a full throttle shift, essentially.
Yeah, the underlying issue here, and we know this very well, and we take advantage of this, and this is why we're able to provide the best products on the market. But the whole system, from the transmission tuning to the clutch disc material, it's all connected. It's all interrelated, and it all works together. And so you can't just go change one piece of the system without updating and addressing everything else. It's a harmonious system where the TCU and the DSG transmission, even the fluid you're running, the clutch disc material is all taken into account. And a lot of what makes the transmission shift well is based on this core modeling that's built into the logic of the TCU. And so if you change the logic, you can't change the transmission without changing the logic, right? So it's all interconnected. And when we make these modifications, we take into account and update and modify the entire system. And that's why we're a hardware and a software company. And I think about 15 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, Nate and I realized we would not be able to be the tuning company that we wanted to be, that we've always dreamed of, if we didn't do software and hardware simultaneously together. And that's because the car is a software and hardware system.
It's a very software-driven system from literally every interaction, everything you touch, everything you feel is governed by software. That's the way of the world, and it will be from here on out.
Yeah, and the way I just talked about this, and Nate and I talked about, we haven't done that before, so I wanted to do a little deeper dive on that. So I know we've touched on it in the past. By the way, someone's asking about this shirt. This is our brand new and very exciting 20th anniversary 034 Motorsports shirt. This is officially our 20th year of operating as a legit business with a brick and mortar. I started the company before then, probably like in 2002, but
by the time
I quit my day job.
Yeah, by the time you got the garage space or the workshop space.
Yeah, quit my day job in April of 2015 or 2005. But what we've done every 5 years since our 10th anniversary is we've released a shirt, and the theme of the shirt is highlights kind of our top 5 development cars from that period. And so between 2020 and 2025, we've documented 5 of our top development cars, which have driven our product line. So from the B9 S4 has obviously played a big role, and B9 RS5, B9 SQ5, Mk8 GTI, and Mk8 Golf are all here. So 20th anniversary. We will also be celebrating our 20th anniversary at Summerfest, which is coming up next month on July 12th. Information should be on our website for that.
Will be by this week.
Yeah. And on our Facebook. It's on our Facebook, right? Yep. Oh, God. We didn't even make a Facebook event.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
somebody should get on that.
July 12th, I will be barbecuing, as always. And we will be here with a car show and some vendor displays. And we usually have some good deals. Dyno exhibitions.
Bunch of raffles.
Mm-hmm. Maybe some hot babes will show up.
Shop tours.
We don't control that. would be nice. So yeah, no, we'll be here. More information coming soon, but reserve July 12th, please, if you haven't already. We'd love to have you guys. The gentleman talking about $20,000 daily driver says he might ditch the S4 and opt for another sedan or hot hatch. He will look into the A7.
A7's great.
A7's a cool car.
Yeah. I mean, you could also Mark 7 GTI is still no slouch.
Oh god, that's
for
a
20K, you can get a
yeah,
solid
yeah.
Mark 7 GTI if you're looking for a
That's
hot
a
hatch.
really fun car. S4MMY says 034 for the win. Thank you very much. Right there with your brother. I'm thinking of only tuning the ECU on my A7 2016. Should I do the TCU at the same time? It's not required, but we do recommend it.
We do strongly recommend it on those.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna have a big impact to performance and drivability. However, feel free to do the ECU, and then whenever you're ready to do the TCU, do it as soon as you can. But you will see a big benefit, but it's not required. B8 S4, what if any are the weaknesses within the driveline? And they're pretty solid. I know people have issues with the DSG.
Well, I was going to say there's the mech unit can have some sensors go out internally, and you'll get the mech failure on some of them. That's a sensor pack that needs replacing essentially inside the belly of the transmission. If you're on a manual transmission, the weakest link there is your clutch basically, and those need to get upgraded for anything over stage 1, depending on how you're driving. Yeah, some people say the sport diff, as Nick's saying, but I've yet to see those be a true weak point on these.
We've seen some issues on the B9.
I have beat the crap out of the sport diff in my car, and it comes back singing every time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but they're pretty stout. Engine mounts, that's just a failure.
Engine mounts
does just fail.
They fail very prematurely, but once you put ours in, no longer
hold up a lot better.
Axles seem to hold up pretty well.
I've still got stock axles on mine. Again, that 100,000 miles on them.
Tens with stock axles.
Very unpleasant conditions given to them.
How does the high flow cat sound with your ResX on the B9 A4? Is there a raspiness after your high flow cat is warmed up? No, the 4-cylinder motors are not raspy. They have it's the same, and I would say going back to the A4 1AT days, it's a more deeper guttural sound from the engine that emerges. The 4-cylinders aren't the best sounding motors. I think everyone can agree on that. But it'll just keep getting louder and louder, and more of that character will come out. I'd say Mark 6 is one of the worst. With the farting and the guttural. No, it's the one saving grace is that if you can rev them real high. Our Time Attack A4 used to sound good, but it was like at 9,000 RPM. From kind of 6 to 9, it would finally wake up, and the sound pulses would get close enough that it wouldn't just sound like a. It wouldn't have that
4-cylinder.
deeper sound. Yeah. This is my 20th year wearing a hand-me-down ITT Tech shirt. Oof.
Nice.
I'm ready to retire it in favor of this drippy MILF-magnet swag you all just dropped. Okay, send this guy a free t-shirt.
Oh, man.
Seriously.
Gotta go find that one.
Everybody needs a drippy MILF-magnet in their life.
Eddie.
Really do like the 034 wheels behind U4 and RS3.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's our classic ZTF 01 wheel, and look great on RS3.
Yep.
In fact, there's one right over there with them, so it looks great. We're almost out of time. Is there a possibility for Pop's tune on the 3.0 TFSI C-Rec platform?
No, not in the amount of time we got left. Yeah, we'll likely be bringing it there at some point. We don't have it enabled yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, I think that kind of closes us out there.
Yeah, we'll call it Pops and Cricks.
Pops and Crickles.
All right, well, thanks for joining us once again. And I believe we'll be back next week, same time-ish.
think so. It's going to depend on kids' schedules for me, but yes,
Yeah.
do our best.
Summer
We're a little offset right now with all the summer camp stuff for the kids. So
All right. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining us.